I'm David Van. I'm a writer from Alaska. My first book is set in Alaska in the rainforest where I grew up. I live now in New Zealand and teach in England in the fall. And I've written 11 books actually. 6 are published so far and 5 more are coming out. And I write mostly fiction, which is essentially Greek tragedy written through the landscape. So it's a very close focus on 2 characters put under a lot of pressure. In this case, it's a father and son in the wilderness trying to survive the winter, and the boy ends up having to take care of the father. There's a lot of pressure put on the boy. I grew up in Alaska, but then my parents separated and I lived in California with my mother. But my father asked me to come back to Alaska for a year, to spend a year together, and I said no. And just a couple weeks after that is when he killed himself. He died by suicide when I was 13. And so I felt really guilty. I felt that if I had said yes to the trip, then maybe my father would still be alive. So I wasn't thinking of this consciously when I wrote the book, but really it was a second chance to say yes to spending the year with him, because in the book a father and son spend a year together in Alaska homesteading, trying to survive off the land. So I think that's the real reason, but also all my life I was writing and wanting to write. And Legend of Suicide is the book in which I was influenced by many authors during the 10 years that I was writing it, and so I was learning how to write and learning what was possible in writing. And I think I was also just trying to get over his suicide, to get past it, and writing was the way to do that. The biggest difference for me was the change in my life after writing about my father for so many years, coming to better terms with his suicide, more peace about it, because there are a lot of legacies after a suicide. Shame. For 3 years I told everyone he died of cancer. Guilt, anger, insomnia, not being able to sleep. And so I worked on this book for 10 years, and by the end of it I felt enormously different. I had more sympathy for my father, understood him better, felt more at peace with what had happened. But really it took 3 more books that I wrote that had my family in the background before I was done writing about my family. And that's when I felt done and just felt like I was finished in life, really. I'd done what I needed to do and just felt a lot better, a lot happier. And the publishing success has been wonderful, and it's changed my life in that I have a lot more freedom. I only have to teach for 2 months each year, and I'm free the rest of the year to write. So I'm really grateful for that. But the bigger personal change was from the writing itself. Writing for me is everything. It's the center of my life. It's the only thing that I really care about. I care about writing and the books much more than I care about myself or anyone in my family or friends or anyone else. And it's because it's essentially a daily religious practice that came from when I was Buddhist and doing daily Buddhist meditation. That switched to my writing practice because for the first hour that I write, it's like a meditation. I'm reading through my previous pages, and as I do the reading, my mind is going different ways, but I try to bring it back and focus. And then the next hour, I have no idea what will happen. I don't know what the book will be about, no plan, no outline, but it's a discovery. I find out. It's an unconscious transformation that happens on the page. And it feels Buddhist in that it just is what it is. I find out what's there. And the books are published the same as the first draft, except for line edits. I don't add a scene or cut a scene. So really writing is the central daily religious practice of my life, 7 days a week, every morning. And it's the only thing that's really meaningful to me. It's the only thing that I've ever been fully engaged by. Every other job I had always left part of me outside. So yeah, it's just everything, and I'll keep writing for the rest of my life, whether I'm published or not, or whether anyone wants to read the books or not. Well, I'm hoping that Korean readers will be interested in reading about a very different kind of life in Alaska, what it's like to grow up in rainforest with wolves and bears and the ocean there and trying to survive off the land, and that they'll also find something recognizable. Korea has the highest suicide rate in Asia, and many people are affected by it. And the book really shows one person going through suicide bereavement, trying to make sense of a suicide after everything has been ruptured and torn apart by that suicide. So I'm hoping that there'll be a connection in that way, but also in this kind of exotic foreign landscape of this wild Alaskan rainforest. I'd just like to add that it's been wonderful traveling all around Korea. I loved the Unmunsa and Bulgoksa, like the temples, very peaceful and beautiful. And I really appreciate what Korea has retained of its culture, resisted full Americanization, and it seems to me a very strong culture that's connected to an ancient past. And so it's been wonderful to spend a month here, to travel around, and everyone's been very generous to me. So I'm hoping to come back within the year. 한국 독자 여러분 감사합니다.